Dear students, Namaste. Pollination is not the end of reproduction in flowering plants. It is just the beginning. The real journey starts when a pollen grain lands on the stigma. Today, let's explore the fascinating process called pollen-pistil interaction. Pollen-pistil interaction is a dynamic process involving pollen recognition followed by promotion or inhibition of the pollen. The pistil has the ability to recognize the pollen, whether it is of right type, that is compatible, or of the wrong type, incompatible. The ability of the pistil to recognize the pollen followed by its acceptance or rejection is mediated by chemical components of the pollen interacting with those of the pistil. If the pollen is of the wrong type, the pistil rejects the pollen by preventing pollen germination on the stigma or the pollen tube growth in the style. If the pollen is of right type, the pistil accepts the pollen and promotes post-pollination events that leads to fertilization. The pollen grain absorbs nutrients and moisture from the surface of stigma to produce a pollen tube through one of its germ pores. Pollen tube grows through the tissues of the stigma and style and reaches the ovary. In some plants, pollen grains are shed at two-celled condition, that is vegetative cell and generative cell. Now, the generative cell divides to form two male gametes during the growth of pollen tube in the stigma. In plants that shed pollen at the three-celled condition, the tube carries the two male gametes right from the beginning. Once it reaches the ovary, the pollen tube enters the ovule through a tiny opening called the micropyle. It then penetrates one of the synergids located at the micropylar end through the filiform apparatus. Filiform apparatus is a special cellular thickening present on the synergids guide the entry of pollen tube. Now, it is double fertilization. After entering one of the synergids, the pollen tube releases the two male gametes into the cytoplasm of the synergid. One of the male gametes moves towards the egg cell and fuses with its nucleus, thus completing the syngamy. This results in the formation of a diploid cell called the zygote. The zygote eventually develops into the embryo. The other male gamete moves towards the two polar nuclei located in the central cell and fuses with them to produce a triploid primary endosperm nucleus. As this involves the fusion of three haploid nuclei, it is termed triple fusion. The central cell transforms into the primary endosperm cell, which divides to form the endosperm. Endosperm is a nutrient-rich tissue that nourishes the developing embryo. Since two types of fusion, that is syngamy and triple fusion, takes place in an embryo sac, the phenomenon is termed double fertilization. Double fertilization is an event unique to flowering plants. Thank you.